Welcome to the future.
My name is Hamayal Choudhry. I'm a social entrepreneur and a creative technologist.
You're on your way to work, trudging through last night's snowstorm. The sidewalk is a little icy, and you're busy contemplating whether you should text your boss, letting them know you'll be 5 minutes late, or you should just walk in and pretend that no one noticed. We've all been there. As you're about to put your foot down in front of you, it slips out right behind you, and there you are, hurtling towards the ground, about to have your face permanently rearranged. When suddenly, the AI chip implanted in your brain kicks in. It detects that you're about to fall and flings your hands out to the pole right beside you, catching you and saving you from a nasty injury. Now, I wish I could tell you that's the type of stuff we're working on today, but we're not quite there yet. However, seeing the current trends in how the connection between body and machine is becoming increasingly shortened, we may not be that far away. You see, we're closer than ever to blurring the lines between what's natural and what's synthetic. What was once science fiction is now becoming a reality. We're blurring the lines between human limitation and human potential. It gives human-machine interaction a whole new meaning. Now, for me personally, I'm particularly fascinated by what these advancements mean for creating assistive devices to empower people with disabilities. It's actually why I started my bionics company to make affordable, robotic, prosthetic hands that can see. You see, I imagine a world where the technology is so advanced and so democratized that it turns disabilities into super capabilities. A world where people who are paralyzed are able to walk again. A world where people who are visually impaired are able to see. A world where amputees can feel through artificial sensors. Up until now, because of the deficiencies in technology, we've got these unmet, unarticulated needs that have yet to be solved. But right now, it's time to break those barriers and use technology to make the world a more accessible place for everyone. Right now, it's comeback season. You see, robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision, all of this technology is more rampant all around the world than it has ever been before. And with it, for the very first time, the ambition and the ability to do amazing things with it is being increasingly democratized. I mean, think about it. Look around you. In 2020, we are living in an age where everything around us, every part of our society, in every country, across every industry, is being changed and transformed because of technology. The impact we all can have here is enormous. The opportunity is enormous. But I also believe there is a profound need for responsibility that we all have to collectively exercise, given the opportunity that we've been given. The impact we're all going to have is based on the choices that you and I can make, the problems and the challenges that we choose to solve and get behind. I like to think that life is substantiated by whatever contribution you can make while you're alive. The finish line's the same for everyone. We're all ending up in the same place, but while we're here, what contribution can you make? Now, today in particular, I want to share with you a story about how I found the contribution that I wanted to make at the crossroads of robotics, artificial intelligence, and prosthetics, assistive devices. But in order to truly understand this story, we have to go back in time 2 years. In 2018, I was a sophomore or a second-year student at university, and this is kind of how it went. I was drawn, like many of you here, to these super successful people and their success stories and their claim to fame. I mean, these are just some of the guys you hear about: Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Cardi B, there we go. I wanted to have a positive impact that would have a lasting effect on people's lives. Pretty bold, right? And at the time, the one thing that really stood out to me was this company that builds really cool and fast electric cars. I think you know the one I'm talking about with the crazy CEO. Tesla was everywhere on the news. And so studying the engineering that I was studying, I thought, what better way to do that than to try and get an internship at my dream company? And that day, I spent 2 months. I'd go to school every day, and instead of attending my lectures, I'd go hide out in the library, pop open my laptop, and I relentlessly began emailing recruiters, engineers, program managers, anybody I could find. Just when I was about to give up hope, I got a call from a recruiter one morning who was looking to fill a role for a robotics engineer. I did an interview, everything checked out, and that was my golden ticket in. I was in the big leagues now. My friends threw me a going away party, and that summer I packed up all my stuff and for the first time moved out of home to Silicon Valley in California. You see, I'd been preparing for this moment my entire life in one way or another. I showed up on my first day of work, and immediately reality began to set in. I suddenly couldn't make sense of what I was doing or why I was there. What was my purpose? What was the impact that I was trying to have? I was supposed to be working on the robots, yet here I was feeling like a robot myself. I felt like I'd made it to the top of this mountain that I had no business, quite frankly, being on top of. And I was concerned, I was upset, and I reached out to family and I reached out to friends telling them about this problem, and they kind of just looked at me and said, Hamayal, what's wrong with you, man? They just didn't understand. So I began to break down the lives of these giants I wanted to be like. What was it that made all these people so successful in what they did? And I realized it was their purpose. But it wasn't just the fact that they had a purpose. I mean, we hear that a lot. But at the very root of their cause was to empower others, not just themselves. It was the desire to empower others that enabled them to affect massive change on a global scale. They solved a painful problem in the world that meant a lot to them. Now, coincidentally, at the same time, I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who's an amputee. She gave me this brief looks on what the prosthetic industry looks like. You see, on one hand, we have a lot of products that are affordable, but they're not very functional. They don't do a whole lot. And then on the other hand, you have these very expensive devices that are advanced robotic devices that are way too too difficult to afford. Because of this, less than 10% of amputees worldwide have access to some sort of prosthetic device. I was interested. This was a cool challenge, and I really wanted to do something about this. And it was at that hackathon that I attended right here in Toronto where things really picked up. I met a friend who shared my desire to use technology to really fix a problem. And over the course of 24 hours, him and myself, we hacked together this weird robotic arm that could see. We gathered materials that we could find lying around, like rubber bands. We had some motors. We took apart this old cell phone we had lying around to take the camera out of it. And we used a 3D printer to print out a hand that would bring it all together and that we could assemble it on. Our crazy idea was to create a hand that can see whatever it wanted to pick up. And the whole point here was when the camera sees the object, it's able to calculate using the built onboard machine learning the best way to pick up that object based on its geometry. Now, what's really the kicker here is we used about 10 lines of code. I had no idea how to code, and I had no formal education in any type of programming. I just looked up some tutorials on Google, but it was the availability of easy-to-use drag-and-drop tools that allowed us to implement some form of AI into our bionic hand that enabled us to play around with it. Now, today, I'm sure all of you know how to use a computer, but 40 years ago, it would require a room full of loud, clunky equipment and a team full of engineers just for simple calculations. The transformation and democratization of the personal computer industry is exactly where we're at today with robotics and AI. The complexity of the technology has faded away due to the hard work scientists and engineers have done, and all you're left with is a modular tool that you can easily implement in a few minutes. And it's going to change everything, just like the internet did in the 2000s with the whole dot-com boom. But essentially, by using these technologies, we could get rid of these expensive neuromuscular interfaces that conventional expensive prosthetics used and offloaded all of that hard, difficult work to the artificial intelligence that we built into the hand. That, in addition to 3D printing the entire thing, made it very cheap and very affordable. Now, we were going around asking amputees what they thought, and somewhere along the process, we caught Microsoft's attention. They invited us to participate in their biggest technology competition they hold with over 40,000 students annually from around the world. And over the course of several months, we made it to the regionals, the nationals, and the world championships or something like that. And we walked away in the end with $130,000 as the grand prize winners to kickstart our company. Basically, overnight, we found ourselves being featured in all these different magazines, Fortune, Business Insider, and before I knew it, we were being invited to speak at conferences all around the world. We even had the Prime Minister come to check out what we were doing and see the technology for himself. Everything just completely blew up, and I was very confused. You see, the heaviness of working that 9 to 5 was replaced by the thrill of running a startup. Less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most innovative periods in my life. This was my release moment. I was working on robotics then back in California, and I'm still working on robotics now. But now I had known what it felt like to really work on something that would create impact, something emotional, a product that would really transform someone's life. Now, throughout the process, people would often ask what the company did. What's next? Where are we going from here? The easy answer was to always say, we make robotics, we make bionics, we make prosthetics, robots sometimes. It sounded cool. But deep inside, I knew that wasn't quite it. There was something else driving us that up until now, I wasn't able to put into words. And that's when I began to unravel what was really going on. It was after talking to our users and hearing their feedback and what they liked about our product and how it was changing their lives did I realize what that driving force really was. We weren't in the business of making bionics or prosthetics. We were in the business of empowering others. Prosthetic hands just happened to be the medium through which we were doing it. We were innovating to empower. Each day I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. Each time I heard a story from an amputee who described their life and how it would be changed by our technology gave us the motivation and courage to keep working on the startup through the difficult and challenging times. Many of these people who had never had access before to a robotic prosthetic hand were now overjoyed with the chance at being able to own one themselves. In a way, my startup became my instrument of change, and I could measure that change precisely by the number of people that we were able to impact. See, purpose is that feeling that you are part of something bigger than just yourself, that you are needed, that you have something better ahead to work for. Today, in particular, and we see this all around us, the average employment rate of a mid-20 to 30-year-old is half of what it used to be 10 years ago. You'll enter the workforce, and statistically speaking, there's a good chance you're going to be unhappy. Why do you think so many people job hop every 6 to 9 months? You feel unsatisfied. You feel unfulfilled. You see, us millennials, we have the lowest employee engagement of all time. It's at an all-time low. How can you fix this? Work on hard problems. I really think hard problems means that you find out something that really upsets you about the human condition in which you grew up in, or in the condition that surrounds your family, your friends, your community, your society, anything. Because when a problem is that personal to you, it becomes deeply motivational. It becomes deeply motivational. because it forces you to correct all those things that I talked about earlier. It forces you to fill in those gaps, and it forces you to pick things that really impact you, yourself. For example, if you have a parent that's suffering from a disease and you can commit your life to doing something about it, not only will you honor that person in maybe the best way possible, but you will probably impact enormous numbers of lives positively. And by the way, if you want to be super duper rich, and if you want to be really rich in addition to be having all this like impact and whatnot, you can't be impactful in a place like that and not make money as a byproduct. The success will come. Life shrinks and life expands in direct proportion to your willingness to assume risk. But if you're like, I don't know, man, I'm really mad and upset and pissed off about drop shipping or food delivery, and I gotta solve the drop shipping crisis. I gotta make sure we can build more websites, and you're actually playing a charade about trying to be an entrepreneur, and you're completely missing the obvious, which is you're probably not going to make it, or it's probably not gonna work. You're probably going to fail statistically speaking, and there's a 0% chance that when the going gets tough, you aren't just going to quit. Because it's hard to understand the boundary condition where a problem like that really matters to you on a personal level. Why else do you think 90% of startups fail? Or as another example, you may be someone who loves going on hikes, climbs, camping. You love being in nature. You love being outdoors. And you may have all of these memories of when you were young, where you felt whole and complete and safe when you were outside, when you were exploring. And now you see the world is getting absolutely shredded apart. And so you decide to do something about climate change. Awesome, do that. That energy will guide you. It will course correct you when times get difficult. It will help you overcome all the insecurities. Once you start, it may take you a couple months. It may take you a few years. It may take you a few decades. You may or may not even reach your intended goal, but it'll feel like you did the right thing. That's a hard thing that matters. And personally, I can't really think of a bigger problem to solve at this point in time particular. So think about all the lives you'll have impacted. We're talking about the whole human race here. Innovate to empower. Now, I think I've boiled it down to a simple recipe. If you can find something that you're really passionate about, if you can find a problem that you're really passionate about or a right that you want to wrong, perfect, that's step one. Think about the best technology you can use to solve it. In this age, it's not going to be the traditional brick and mortar businesses that are going to scale up. It will be the technology driven or technology businesses in which technology is an important tool. Number two, be open to pivots. You might find a high growth trend that you didn't anticipate. And number three, spend as much time as possible with your customers. At the beginning, a startup is as much about gut as it is about data, and you never know what you may find out when you're spending time with your customers. Now, as you're on your way out here, I want to leave you with this. Just look around you and think about a problem that you may want to solve. And in a few days, I want you to reach out to someone, maybe in your family, your friend group, your neighborhood, your society, someone who may share that same problem, and I want you to tell them a possible solution. See how a group of you may be able to come together and start to solve it, just a little tiny bit. Innovate to empower. Thank you.